Good evening, Council. It's now 7 o'clock. Welcome to this special council meeting of the 2021 budget. This is our fifth meeting of the budget tonight, folks, and I hope everybody brought their questioning shoes as we are moving towards completion of this budget. We have started this process in October the 6th with our visioning session, moving through all the capital, the operating, and now we're kind of looking at the total package and some of the business plans and stuff tonight. So welcome, council, welcome, staff, welcome to those watching on the YouTube channel. We hope that we will be able to work through our agenda tonight and answer all of council's questions and come up with a finished, closer to a finished product tonight. We will not be using eScribe tonight. We will be voting in WebEx, council. This is once again our fifth of the 6 meetings. The only thing left will be our public information session. And once again, with the lockdown and COVID, we will be doing that in a different format, likely on Your Say North Perth. And it will be in a video that potentially some famous actors from Britain will be doing, namely myself and Councillor Rothwell will likely do a bit of a video to put on Your Say North Perth and get that out there, and maybe we can get more public engagement than we normally do at the public information night. So that is the rough plan at this point, council. With that, we are looking at the agenda. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda? I'm not seeing any, Pat. Then I'd look for a mover and a seconder that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Councillor Andreessen, would you move that?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Anstead, would you second that?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those opposed, please vote so in the WebEx chat function. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Tonight's agenda is passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I haven't been made aware of any. Anybody have any in the chat function right away? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 2, the consent agenda. We have in front of us 2.1, the minutes from our 2021 January the 13th budget meeting. And it'll be moved and seconded that the minutes of the January 13th, 2021 budget meeting be approved. Councillor Bearns, would you move that?
Yes, I would make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, would you second that?
Yes, I will. Sorry for the delay there.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on that motion? Okay, anyone opposed, please vote so in the chat function. Okay, seeing none, we'll call that one passed. We have no delegations tonight, council, so we are going to move right into our reports. We have a letter in front of us from the Huron-Perth Ag Science Center. And tonight, Kim is going to speak to that. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston and members of council. I just want to briefly summarize the report and the request before you this evening. The Ontario Children Foundation provided funding for the feasibility study for a children's museum. And the outcome has been a transition into an egg science center, and that was felt to be much more feasible, and lots of opportunities after market research was completed and all of the assessments, interviews, and such were completed by the consultant. So they're at the phase now. They did provide the report to you in December, and they are now at the point of, in order to be able to pursue further funding of other levels of government, of other organizations and private donors, they really feel it's essential for the local municipal council to provide support in a couple of different ways. So the first way is the allocation of land, a gifting of land to place the property or the building to be situated. And the second is the future supply of the future annual operating costs once it was open. So in 2024. So one thing I do want to make sure is really clear that these are conditional requests of support. That they are requesting it in the event that the capital fundraising campaigns are successful. Then at that point, then they would be seeking out those areas for you. At this point, it is conditional. They feel that they need to have that in order to be able to go on to these other levels of government and organizations to pursue other donations. So that's in essence the request before you, and I'm open to any questions that you may have about the report or about the letter, and I'll do my best to help clarify.
Thanks, Kim. And yes, you see, council, you see the letter in front of us. So I do have two motions in front of me tonight. And I can read them now so that you know what we're looking at, council. So the first one says the Council of the Municipality of North Perth agrees to conditional support of the Huron-Perth Ag Science Center project by means of a one-time future gift of municipality-owned land and annual operating expenses in the amount of up to $150,000 per year upon successful completion of a capital funding project with other levels of government, organizations, and private donors. So that is the one motion. The other motion is the exact same, except it says the Council of the Municipality of North Perth does not agree. So we have those two motions in front of us. So, and Kim is here to answer any questions. Looks like we are going to go to Councillor Bearns.
Thank you, Chair Dave. I did go back and review their report that council looked at on the 21st of December and reviewed their presentation and their business plan, as well as our own internal business plans. And I certainly support the concept. I think it's a fabulous idea. But right now, when you take a look at everything together in the bigger picture, with the amount of outstanding commitments North Perth already has, not just for our own infrastructure, but with some of our other outside agencies. And I'm thinking now of the United Way Community Hub and the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan and those types of things. And Amy had been looking at the Lonely No More and all of those that are going to take extra dollars. And for some of us that have been on council, we know it's not the capital costs that are a struggle, it's the ongoing operating cost. So I don't have a problem with donating land, a one-time land donation. I do have a problem with continued support in perpetuity. And I realize that we're talking 2024. However, that's a future council, that's not us. And, you know, most times you cannot bind the hands of a future council. But in reality, given our current state of what I'm going to call the COVID economy, many businesses and a lot of people in our workforce are struggling, and we don't even know the fallout from COVID on what it's going to do for our economy for the next 2 years and how long it's going to take people to bounce back. I do apologize, but in good conscience right now, after looking at their business plan, and I don't believe that their business plan is viable. I do think there's a few misconceptions and assumptions that maybe shouldn't have been made when you take a look at the numbers that they're talking about and how many people are going to be visiting. I do apologize to everyone, but I have to vote no. I am not in support of this at this time. I do, however, I will reiterate, I am in support of the concept of this project.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens, and it sure looks like you've done your research on this. So listening to that, Julie, you would have no problem with the first sentence of the resolution of donating a one-time future gift of municipally owned land. It's more the operating expenses that you have an issue with. Is I understand you correctly?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Kim, do you want to respond to that at all?
I definitely understand your concerns. I think that they, I think the operating costs, I know that they were doing some comparisons with other elements of the municipality that they felt would have a comparative impact to what this could potentially have as far as tourism and attraction and retention of youth and some of the bigger impacts. So I think in the study, I'm sure you read that 100% viability is not possible for any museum or science center. As a science center, it has much more viability on an annual basis. And I think they were conservative in some of their projections for from the research that they did. I do understand your concerns, and especially with the current economy and the fact that this is a potential impact on future councils. So that's a fair
Thank you, Kim.
comment.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Dave. Councillor Behrens had stolen some of my thunder there. I do wholeheartedly agree with this in principle, and I do understand the want to educate our children and to bring that in, and just people in nature to do that and possibly be a tourism attraction. However, I would also agree that donating land or a building or something, depending on the scope and the breadth of it, I do think would be acceptable. But I think that North Perth has an awful lot on their plate with some expenditures that we don't know that are going to exist in the future, and also beleaguering future councils with some operational costs of up to $150,000 a year, I think might be a little preemptive at this time. So I too will be voting no for this motion. I do honestly think it's incredibly important to possibly do that, but now is not the right time. I do think that there's an awful lot of things. We've got an awful lot of people here that I think it was mentioned just prior that, even our Wi-Fi connectivity and our broadband internet, and there's awful lot of money that could be put into that is going to be required in order to bring that up. Let's hope some funding comes in. That's a sidebar question. But I do think that there's an awful lot of significant infrastructure elements that need to be put in place prior to this at this point. Even though I agree with it wholeheartedly in principle, I don't feel that I can support it at this time. Land, and yes, if it's fully supported after the fact, but I don't think it's something that we can handle right now for this upcoming budget. That I'm not in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Looks like Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dave. I have to tell you that I am very, very conflicted as I, worked through the paperwork and the presentations from this project, and just knowing what I know now as a counselor, I'm conflicted because, as a rural resident and an activist myself for agriculture, I think that this would be an absolutely perfect opportunity for this community. I also think that, in terms of youth retention and, future education, I think it would be an awesome project, an awesome facility, and for tourism here in North Perth. However, I have grown to understand the needs of this community in different ways, sitting in this chair as a counselor. And what I understand now, especially with COVID, is that we have some much bigger issues that need to be addressed. And we haven't even touched the surface of them in terms of this agricultural community. And right now, and I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity to talk about it later. And I know Matt raised it briefly, and that's about the access to internet and broadband usage for our rural residents. And without that, our economic success in this community is really, really questionable. And I think that we may need to do investment in those kinds of areas versus this type of project. My concern is also the same as what Julie had mentioned, and what Councillor Behrens had mentioned was around the ongoing operating costs. And we as a council have talked about the sustainability of different projects in our municipality that need to be sustainable. They need to be user fee, user pay. And I know that's a lot of money, but I think we need to start to have these types of projects think about how can they be more sustainable so that they aren't incurring operational costs on our organization itself. Unfortunately, again, as I am so conflicted about this, I wish we were in different times. I could only support the municipality offering land as well, but I would not be able to support future annual operating costs through our municipality at this time. So I wouldn't be able to support it, and I'm so conflicted about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne, and very well stated. And one thing about this council is we are not experienced in tourism here in North Perth. It's not like we have a beach in the summertime and we rely on the tourism industry like Sauble Beach or Grand Bend or other towns. Stratford, has the festival and stuff. This would be something new for us, so it's not something that we're very experienced in. So it's something different. It looks like Mayor Kasenberg would like to weigh in. Thank you. Welcome, Todd.
Thanks, Dave. Rest of council, good evening. Normally too, I would say that I'm a dreamer and would be all in with both feet. But I too also recognize that this community has a number of needs that are at this point in time probably higher priority. We've talked about the broadband internet piece, and I think the only concern that I have is that as we look at trading, we sort of are doing a trade balance thing here, right? And when we talk about saying, well, okay, we wouldn't pursue this because we want to pursue broadband, then we better be serious about broadband. Like I think that we have to be earnest about our desires. I think affordable housing is a significant play that this council is going to have to get involved with. There are a number of other issues. I remember my conversation with Mr. Silberberg with regards to his report, and at the time, I tried to set that expectation that this community has a number of significant projects that lie ahead of it, a number of projects that require fundraising, and that there was a high likelihood that there'd be a whole lot of collision if we just added one more to the mix. And so I too, like all of you before me, have certainly feelings of conflict, but I will say that I think that we have some bigger fish to fry. I want to fry those bigger fish, though, Council, and I think that at this time, the best that we could do, which may well enable them to at least consider next steps, is to make that commitment that we would give a one-time gift of land. But in terms of the operating costs that they're proposing at this point, while they're not as significant as some of our arenas and the EMCC and some other facilities that we currently run, I think we need to defer a decision about that down the road. I don't want to stall off their opportunities for fundraising, but at the same time, as I said, I think there's going to be a collision in the fundraising market in North Perth in the next 3 to 5 years. And I would rather us put first things first. So at this time, I too would only support a motion that cleaves in half the expression of support and that indicates that we would give a gift of land, but we won't at this point make a commitment on the operating costs.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And Councillor Rothwell, I'll get to you in 1 second. I just want to I'll reread the motion, and I'm going to strike part of it because I think that's where council is leading. So I think, Councillor Rothwell, I'll get to you, but here is a motion, council, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth agrees to conditional support of the Huron Perth Ag Science Center project by means of a one-time future gift of municipally owned land upon successful completion of a capital funding project with other levels of government, organizations, and private donors. So what I've done is I've taken out the operating expense of up to 150,000 from the original motion. And now with that in mind, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And I just want to agree with the fellow councillors. I think we have to understand that the proposed motion, which has been read, still shows our support, if council agrees, significant support in terms of having a project to move forward. And I, again, as Councillor Andreessen said, and Councillor Behrens, I think we owe a debt of gratitude for the committee that brought this matter forward, and certainly the consultant that for the reports, as well as the funding source and so on. It's opened our eyes, my eyes, in terms of what the potentials are. And I think it would be very appropriate for council to move forward with the one-time donation that shows that we are serious about this. I agree with the other comments that have been made, and I'm willing to attend the mayor's fish fry, so to speak, and look at some of those other issues. Thank you. I'm willing to move the motion when we do get to that point. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Not seeing any other discussion. Pat, is that motion okay the way I've struck out that? So I will reread it, council. We have a motion in front of me that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth agrees to conditional support, and remember, we are agreeing to conditional support of the Huron Perth Ag Science Center project by means of a one-time future gift of municipally owned land upon the successful completion of a capital funding project with other levels of government, organizations, and private donors. And I have Councillor Rothwell will move that. Councillor Seiler, would you second that?
I will second that, but I have one question on the gift of the land.
Go ahead, Terry. Yep.
What if what if this was to happen and it fell flat and we get stuck with a building on a piece of property? That's my question.
Not sure who's going to answer that. Kim, can you take a run at that? Or maybe Fran?
I believe in the report it did comment that if it was not successful ongoing, then it would become the property of the municipality. But
and I thought that in the report, until they wouldn't start until they had all their ducks in a row. Like they would have to have enough money to get everything built and up and running, Terry. And I think, you know, it wouldn't be abandoned until it's several years in. So I think our risk level there is still there, but it's out a couple of years. So I don't think the risk level is huge right off the bat, because the novelty will be there for the first several years, I would assume.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just, the comment about it being the property of the municipality, I think that was in the situation of ongoing operating costs. So that might change that part of the agreement if that was not going to continue.
Okay. Does that answer
Thank you,
your
Dave.
question?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And just one other comment. I think that where this should start at is at the county, and then if they want to get us involved, I'll second this motion. But if to start at the county, if they want us to get involved, for them to come and speak with us and go from there.
Very good.
And
Thank you, Terry.
I will second the motion. Thank
Okay,
you.
appreciate it. We do have a motion on the floor. Councillor Behrens with a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Dave. Councillor Seiler brought up a good point, though, about, we're not looking at just any piece of land here. It's going to be expansive, it's going to have parking, it's going to be prime real estate, so to speak. And I think it's important that, everyone understand at this point that that gift of land, if it fails in 5 or 10 years, maybe there's something that must be written into the agreement to say the land comes back to the municipality, because I mean, it's a lot of money. Like, you're looking at real estate right now these days, unless there's a market correction, that's a great contribution from the municipality as is. I think this is far bigger than any municipality or county. Here in Perth isn't big enough. I think this is Ontario, where they're going to have to be starting to look at their own funding and all of the Ontario ag organizations as well. So I think maybe we have to have the understanding that something must be written into the gift of land contract, that, it's not theirs to keep and do with what they want.
Excellent point, Councillor Behrens. I agree with that. And I think we're several years from that, but I agree. I think this is the starting point tonight of the supporting the potential gift of land, and then we would move from there. Kim, do you have any comment on that?
No, I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved. It's been seconded. Any other comments, council? Okay, and I've read it twice. We struck out the part of the operating expenses up to 150,000 per year. It's been moved. It's been seconded. All those opposed, please say so in the chat function. I'm not seeing any. That is passed. Thank you very much. Great. Thank you, council. Great discussion tonight. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Moving on to 4.2, business plan next steps. Tonight will be presented by Fran.
Chair Dave, members of council, on behalf of CAO Snell, I'd like to highlight that as per council's direction, senior staff will be reviewing their individual proposed business plans in detail over the next few council meetings. In the meantime, for 2021 budget purposes, council is being asked to earmark tax dollars for this purpose. Once council approves and prioritizes the business plans, staff will have clear direction for implementation, and funding strategies can be reconsidered by council at that time. And if there's any further questions that I can answer or take back to senior staff, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Any questions for Fran about the business plans? We're going to be hearing in depth and going through them a little closer over the next several council meetings. I expect over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we'll be looking at them closer, council. And we do have some money in this budget earmarked for some of the business plan. Looks like Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thanks, Dave. I am experiencing some internet intermittency, so I'm hoping that you're not struggling to hear me, but please let me know if you are. Again, I think it's important to reiterate why we're doing this, right? Staff has brought forward business plans that align with the business strategy. And I think what was stellar to me, what really stood out in all of the business plan effort, and we've had them for a little while, is the number of full-time equivalents that the staff reports are needed to actually fulfill against even current operations. And so to some degree, we're budgeting and maybe we've got the cart and the horse sort of side by side at this point, which is perhaps unfortunate. But I think there's wisdom in the approach that has been recommended by staff that we evaluate these business plans sort of department by department, and we allocate ahead of time some of the funds that we will need to try to close the gaps that we're aware of. Those gaps are not insignificant, right? I mean, 10 to 14 full-time equivalents is what has been estimated in the business plan. We are short at this time. And for us to not allocate any funds or even a significant start on this is, I think, would be negligent on our part. So it's very important for us to be looking forward in this budget to begin the process of rectifying some of the challenges that the staff is identifying. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I walk those halls, although not so much these days, but I walk those halls and touch base with employees across the organization, and we are very lean staffed. I believe that the numbers shown in the business plans that document staff effort requirements are real and perhaps even conservative. And so I encourage us to be thinking ahead to how we begin to rectify that. And I think the process that's been described tonight in the course of our meeting is important to us. And putting some funds there in faith that we will have good action is going to be very important. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And I think that's part of our options when we get into the budget further as to how much, if any, we want to set aside for some of these business plans. And I think that'll be a discussion for a little bit further down the road. But your comments are very much appreciated. You're right. You do, prior to this lockdown, get into the halls a lot more than most of us do, and you do get to see staff in action. We get to see the reports, we get to see them out plowing roads and stuff, but we don't get to see the action in here on the day-to-day basis like you were up until this stay-at-home order. So thank you. Any other comments on the business plans and the next steps? That council will be going through them a little more in depth over the next several council meetings. Seeing no more comments, thank you very much for all your comments. We'll now move on to item 4.3, which is the, sorry. As Pat just reminded me, there is a resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report titled 2021 Department Business Plans Next Steps as information. Mayor Kasenberg, would you move that motion?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you.
Yes, so moved.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, would you second that?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those opposed, please vote so in the chat function. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the updated version of the e-books. I hope everyone has it open. I'm not sure, Fran, if there's anything we need to say about the e-book.
I think at this time, subsequent maybe to Becky's presentation, if there's any questions that council would either like us to answer or to address subsequently to this evening, if we don't have the answer, by all means, whenever council feels they would like to bring those questions forward, that'd be great.
Yep, awesome, thank you. I'm not seeing any questions yet. So maybe council, if you'll be with us, we'll move right on to item 4.4, which is the report on the updated 2021 combined operating budget with 2020 restated. This is dated January 21st of 2021. And Becky, our Deputy Treasurer Asset Management Specialist, will be doing that report. Becky, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dave. Council, good evening. So before you is a report for the 2021 operating budget. At the January 13th council meeting, you received two versions of the operating budget, the 2020 operating combined budget and the reinstated budget in new format for comparison purposes. In that budget, it represented a 3% increase on the tax levy. Council directed staff to adjust the operating budget by zero-based budget for landfill budget, reduction of $96,094, and the emergency fund transfer to reserves to be increased by $50,000. In reviewing the budget, we had a few other minor changes. New information came in. So the POA with the county, we had a revenue of $80,000 and we reduced that to $60,000. So it was a difference of $20,000. Climate change budget, there was not a transfer of to reserves for the climate change staff members. So we've adjusted for that. There was a cemetery increase in rates of $7,100, and that was offset in a transfer to reserves for $7,100. So net zero at the end of the day, and still leaving the increase overall at 3% on the levy. So as you heard, over the next few council meetings, CAO SNEL will be reviewing the business plans and implementation. And within this budget, the current budget with the 3%, we've given some options. There are 3 options on the table for this evening for your review as per in conjunction with Chair Dave and Vice Chair Alan Rothwell. So option 1 is the way it was presented on the 13th, 3% increase, which includes $200,000 towards the business improvement, business plan implementation, which is an increase of 1.7% on tax impact due to growth. Option 2 is the same as option 1, with an increase of $200,000 from $200,000 to $400,000, resulting in a 4.3% tax increase with a 2.5% tax impact due to growth. And the third option is the same as option 1, from an increase of $200,000 for the business improvement or implementation to $500,000, which is resulting in a 5% tax levy increase and a 2.9 tax impact due to growth. I have all of my data open here, so if there's some other options that you would like to entertain, we can look at those and I can give you those numbers. Each of these options shown below reflect the percentage on the levy, the dollar value increase on the levy, and an overall percentage increase on the tax rates. We kind of did a synopsis of what it will look like for you. Each option, at this point in time, not all outside agencies, the county and conservation authorities have been finalized for their 2021 levy requests. Therefore, they're still subject to change. Options below do not include the stormwater levy increase, the BIA levy decrease, or the waste bin increase. As well, on Friday, the Perth County, in collaboration with Perth County, the local treasurers will be finalizing the potential changes to tax ratios and tax classes before the 2021 tax impact can be determined. Tax ratios and tax classes changes will be considered for 2021 include the multi-residential tax ratio. So currently it's at 1.25 and it potentially could go down to 1, similar to the new construction multi-residential. And we will be reviewing the new small scale business tax class as well with the county. So before you, you have those three options. Pat, I'm not sure if you want to scroll up to those options to have them on the screen for council.
That's working.
And I guess we'll leave it open for discussion.
Very good. Thank you, Becky. So we will, Becky, one question I have, and just for clarification, when you're talking option one, a 3% increase, but I think you said a 1.7 on the levy, that is because of growth and because MPAC is leaving the assessments the same, correct? Just so that we're,
Correct.
yeah, so the option two would be a 4.3% increase on the levy, but really only a 2.5% increase for a landowner or an average landowner per se, because of the growth that we've achieved this year, correct?
That's correct. That's
I
with the current information we have from the county and with the school board reductions for commercial class. We've
Yep.
received their rates.
So they have presented three options. I guess there could be another option if council was led that way. But the original budget that we looked at, council had the 200,000 in it. It was looking at a 3% budget increase, which would mean a 1.7. They also came back with the option two, going back to what the mayor spoke about the business plans. We're going to be going through them, but we know that there are a lot of needs in them. With those in mind, we came back with option two to add an extra 200,000, which would take it up to a 4.3%, and then an option three, which would be to add another 300,000 in total, which would be a 500,000, which would take it up to a 5% or a 2.9% increase after the growth is figured in. So I'd be open to comments, council, about the options and to see which way council is leaning. Does anyone want to grab the ball first? I know that there are a lot of needs at the municipality, but at my point at this time, I would be leaning towards option one is the one that I'm the most comfortable with. It is a bit of an increase on the levy and a bit of an increase for the business plans, and I think to get them started. It looks like Councillor Richardson will weigh in here. Thank you, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Dave. I also agree with scenario one. On one hand, I guess with a little bit of conflict. On one hand, I do understand with some of the needs that are going to be coming up for the municipality with staffing and stuff like that could be significant, and those are static costs that we know is what's necessary. There's a lot of unknowns which are going to be coming out with COVID that we just don't understand at this point in time. I would like to, at least for this budget, to keep things as low and as reasonable as we can, because like I do believe it was Councillor Barons had alluded to earlier, that there's a lot of people out there that are having a tough go of it right now. Just even a couple of weeks ago, we've just even decreased advertising rates in the arena. Like we've done an awful lot for the folks out there that we need to do our part as to try and mitigate the smallest amount of increase that we absolutely need to have to go forward. So I also would agree with scenario one. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Anybody else wish to weigh in on their wishes? Looks like Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Dave. I kind of echo what Councillor Richardson has said. It kind of keeps us in the ballpark of what our neighboring municipalities are doing around us. And this is a year that we need to look at what we're going through and what some of the people are up against, and we need to keep our operating, but we got to try to keep the percentage down to try to help everybody out there that's going through what we're going through. So scenario one, I can go with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Councillor Duncan.
I'm going to echo the same comments as the previous two counselors. And yourself, Councillor Johnson. I think that this is a year where we need to help out our ratepayers as much as we can, and I'm fully in favor of scenario one.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chair Dave. If we went with scenario one, as I read it, I'm trying to see it in the small print there, but so I understand then that $200,000 could be transferred to support those business plans if we did scenario one. Could you clarify that for me again? Thank you.
That is correct. Option one has $200,000 set aside for business plan implementation.
And so what does that translate to? Is that like 3 additional staff? Like I don't know. I don't know what is
Well,
that.
that's a loaded question, Leanne, but I'm sure Becky or Fran would love to answer that.
I think it's having some kind of understanding of what that might mean might be helpful. Thank you.
There again, if I might weigh in, Chair Dave, that is a hard one, and as Dave said, loaded question to answer. It really depends on what staff you would hire. It would depend on what you're prioritizing in the business plan. So I wouldn't want to equate that to any EFTs at this time. I really think that there's a lot of work for council and staff to present to sort of weigh through to figure out what those are. And so therefore, at this time, I think it's just a matter of this is what you're budgeting to implement that. It doesn't mean that after council figures out what they're going to be doing with the plans and how they're going to implement them, that you can't revisit how we might have a funding strategy for it. So I think that needs to come out at the end as well. And this is just saying that you've got 200,000 ready to go. If you don't spend it, it won't be wasted. If you do want to spend more, then we'll have to figure out how we do that.
Thank you, Fran, and I agree. Leanne, we're going to be looking at these business plans over February and March, and we won't be able to implement everything right away. You know what I mean? So we're setting the 200,000 aside, and as we go through business plans, we're going to need to look at the big picture and say, okay, we need to prioritize something in rec and something in admin and something in public works or something like, those will be our the ones that we want to concentrate on, and then we will come back and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost. Thank God we have 200,000 set aside, or maybe we will be short at that point already. But it is going to, we're going to go through the business plans, and then it will be some lag time till council or staff can implement what we do recommend. So the 200,000, yeah, it could be 3 to 5 jobs. It could be 7 part-time jobs. It's very hard to put a number on it. That's why I said it was a bit of a loaded question and let Fran have a go at it first. But it is, to me, it's seed money to get started on a project that we know is needed. Does that answer your question, Leanne, enough?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful. I'm just trying to weigh out what the need is and what we can do. These are tough times for sure. Thank you.
Yep, a great point, Leanne. It is tough times for, on one side, we need to be not frugal with our money, but we need to be responsible with what we do collect. But we also need to be good stewards of looking after the money and spending it wisely as well. And we know that staff in certain spots are very much overworked. Mayor Kasenberg.
Thanks, Dave. And I'm just reiterating what I've said earlier, which is there is a problem in the organization that we will have to correct for over the next couple of years, is my belief. My concern is that this problem may be more significant now than we in general believe. And it will be the business plans that will help us understand that, I think. So I am very much looking forward to the discussion about the business plans. But I send that cautionary message that if we don't take some action to relieve the overwork burden, either through thinning the activities that the staff do or by adding to our staff, we run significant and real risk that some staff will depart and we will have some difficulty with replacing in certain technical areas. So I think council just needs to be aware of that. I'm not, option one is fine. I would be bolder and do option two, but I won't stand in the way of council's will, obviously, of option one for the sake of getting progress towards the plan.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Anyone else we haven't heard from wish to weigh in on an option? I'm hearing the majority are leaning towards option one. I would love to say the coffers are easily full and that we could go to option two or three. And I can see where council is leaning to maybe kind of tend towards putting some away and being a little bit cautious and not and not going the full route tonight. So I'm not seeing any more comments. So with the comments we've had, it's leaning towards option one. Fran, sure, go ahead, Fran.
Thanks. Council, keep in mind that, option one and option two aren't in stone. Feel free to do option 1.5. Council, you're more than, just keep in mind that there's an endless amount of options here. So if you wanted to add another 50,000, 100,000 to that without going all the way to another additional 200,000 in option two, by all means, those can be your considerations. And as Becky mentioned earlier, she's got her calculator open there to plug it in, whatever amount you'd like, just to try it on for size. So feel free to explore that if you like.
Excellent point, Fran. That's right, Council. These are numbers that we put to that Becky and Fran and Alan and I brought forward, but you're right, they're not set in stone. If someone would like to go a number in between them, we'd be more than willing to look at that. Councillor Andreessen.
Yeah, I just wondering if maybe we should look at a small increase to option one in order to serve the needs of what we need to do in terms of the organization and to ensure that the work can be done and we're not overloading our staff, but at the same time it's just a smaller increase, just a thought.
Yep, very good, thank you. Councillor Behrens.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a little bit wary of increasing it more than scenario one. And my concern is, you're still increasing the tax levy. We've increased a number of user fees, and certainly I'm not certain yet, and I can't remember, but correct me if I'm wrong, whether water and wastewater fees are all going up this year as well. I'm just, it's fine to say it's just the levy, but when you get all of the other impacts onto it for the average person who, lives in town with a house and pays for water and wastewater and all of those things, I mean, the little increases can add up. If there was some way that we could see what, that impact would be, then it would be easier to kind of judge what do we think we can push the limit to. Thank you.
Becky, can you weigh in on that as to what our water numbers, are they moving slightly? I know what we upped our bin fees to try and make that more user pay.
Yes, I'm just seeing if I can get you some numbers here. Just bear with me for 2 seconds on the stormwater, and just have to open that file. Just got it today, so.
While Becky's looking for that, Becky, keep looking for that. I'm just going to go to Councillor Anstead to keep us moving forward on that, and then we'll circle back around to that.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And yeah, I've listened to everything that has been said so far. I do agree. Option one would be what I would be leaning towards as well. I do hear Mayor Kasenberg's comments about the business plans, and I agree. Like any good, strong organization, you need to have good people, and I think now more than ever, our people are burned out because there's just not enough of them. Again, I would be hesitant to go any higher with the increases on option one. I think that this is fair, but again, like Councillor Barron's alluded to, with everything else going on right now, it's tight, right? So option one would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Anstead. Becky, we got Mark Hackett here that can likely speak to those water rates as well.
Water. Yes, I'm still getting the stormwater and the others here.
Mark, go ahead if you would, please.
Thanks, Chair Dave. I don't know the actual dollar value, but I do know that the water rate was up 0.5%, a half a percent, and the wastewater was 5%, and that's a typical what we've been doing for the last number of years.
Okay, so that is going to mean, getting back to your point, Councillor Bearns, that is going to be an increase for those that are in urban settings that are on water and wastewater, that they will be getting an increase as well. So a point very well taken there. Councillor Seiler, go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, I've already had a couple calls on that issue with the water rates going up, and I guess probably when we did look at this, I still think that our water rates and sewage is in the ballpark of everybody around us, if not better. Thank you.
Okay, good point, Terry, and thank you for that. Becky, do you have any numbers?
Just the stormwater levy actually only goes up around $2 based on the average single family dwelling.
Okay.
And I do know BIA goes down to the BIA, those businesses involved in the BIA. And I was just seeing, so an additional, was it $30 for the waste bins? For anyone with a small waste bin.
So that will add up on a single family home to $30 for the waste bin, $2 here, $2 there. It will add up, and then we throw on an extra 1.7%.
Which is $22 more.
Yeah.
So you're up to 54 roughly.
Yep. Yeah. So there we go. Councillor Richardson.
I think we just all need to keep in mind that even though MPAC is not doing a lot this year as far as giving new assessments and stuff, when that comes out again, there's going to be a very large correction next year again, because the tax rate is going to be based upon the MPAC assessments. That we need to keep that in mind. But I just think we need to be kind for a year. And yes, we have some great plans and necessary plans, but everyone needs to work together. And at the end of the day, we're all taxpayers, even ourselves, who happen to live in the municipality of North Perth. For here, we have to do everything that we possibly can to try and help out people, because there's honestly people out there that are, even though we say a few dollars here and a few dollars there, to some people that can make a profound difference if it's every month. I think we need to bear in mind that even if it's for 1 year, if it was a different year and different outcome, I would suggest something a little bit more to get our business plans up and running. However, for the next year, I think I'm still going to stick to my guns that I still think that we need to keep on that even 1.7 or the scenario 1 at the 3%, because there's a lot of extra increases that are going to be coming, and there's going to be extra increases that are coming this year that aren't involving the municipality, whether it be food. There's a lot of different things coming up, and there's a lot of uncertainty out there at this point. So I think we need to be the harbinger of a little bit of certainty that we're doing everything that we can to keep things as low as we can, at least for this year, because we've also had some pretty good increases for the past few years, all necessary. But I think we need to hold the phone for this year and stay at scenario 1. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. So I have a motion in front of me that reads, and I'll need somebody to help me with that total tax levy number that we're going to fill in here. The motion reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth selects 2021 operating budget option number 1 with a total tax levy of, where am I finding that? Right.
$15,779,645.
Thank you, Fran. So I'll read that again. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth selects 2021 operating budget option number 1 with a total tax levy of $15,779,645 to be virtually presented to the public by the 2021 Budget Chair and Vice Chair on or before February 10th, 2021, seeking public input. Could I ask Councillor Richardson to move that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'll move that. Sorry about that.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, would you second that?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor, and once again, the end part of it is that we will be working with Fran, Becky, and Jessica, and I'm not sure who else, to get this on Your Say North Perth and wherever else we can, to get it out to the public, to let them view it, kick it around, and get some public input about it. So between Alan and myself, we will be working on getting it videoed and out to the public. Any comments on accepting option number 1 with the $15,779,645? Any comments? Pat and I are not seeing any. So we will call that to a vote. Anyone opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Great discussion. We will now move on to item 4.5, the combined capital budget projects. Becky, you're up again still.
Thank you, Mayor, or Chair Dave.
Yes,
So
I'm
if you-
definitely not the, sorry, Becky, I'm definitely
I
do not want
apologize.
this. I do not want this mayor's chair. I'll let you know that right now.
I apologize. In front of you is the 2021 capital project report. So on the November 25th and December 9th budget meetings, you were presented with the 2021 capital projects, as well as combined project data, as well as the ranking for each of the new projects presented by staff. Capital projects are funded by segregated surplus funds that have been built up through transfer to reserves for each department. User fee, tax levy, development charges, grants, donations, sale of land, and other. These dollars are allocated separate from our operating budget. Staff have updated some of the proposed projects and have added or deferred projects based on new information regarding the work that is entailed. This information has been updated in your ebooks. Note that staff adjusted the overall capital 2021 projects by $1.542 million. It was reduced. The total combined project was proposed for 2021 capital budget is $19,756,579. Of that, $13,361,832 are new projects, and $6,394,747 are carryovers from previous years. So some of the changes from the previous meetings, there was a reduction with the fleet of $325,000. Cemetery had some additional pricing increases of 8 on project 2, as well as the signage and planting on project 1 of 5,000. Fire had additional emergency radio operations channel added as a project of 50,000. Road sidewalk replacement county along 55, Road 55 in Moncton is an additional 27,000 on project 13. The Albert Storm Trunk is an additional 71,500 on project 9. And the Bridges and Culverts Davidson Street Bridge adjustment, we removed 1,450,000 that will be added to next year, and was an actual reduction of 1.4 million. Wastewater additional work needed to be completed, 21,500 on project 1. So with that, I have open to any questions or your consideration of the recommendation for the capital projects for 2021.
Thank you, Becky. Looks like we're going to start off with Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Becky. My question is, that was announced today that there's going to be 6.9 million infrastructure funding coming to us by the province. So if we were to apply and receive, which is, I think it's our turn, will this make any changes on our infrastructure? Like there's going to be, this is just announced by the province. I think I just read it today. It's just new on the screen. So if we were to apply for any of that funding and happen to get it on any of these projects, where will that put us?
Might open that up to some of the department heads to see if there's any of their projects that they might feel that could be considered the Davidson Street Bridge or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Councillor Seiler, we'd have to see what would qualify, whether anything with the wastewater treatment plant would qualify. We could cover off some of the finishing up projects there, or whether it would all fall under Lyndon's bridges and culverts and roads. I guess it would see what would qualify, and if we could move a project or two ahead a year or two because we could get it paid for. I'm thinking maybe Fran would like to give an overview.
My input at this point in time would be that there's that grant coming out. There's a modernization grant that's going to be available. There's a couple of other smaller ones that are coming to us. And I think we're going to have to bring back those to council in pieces or as they come up. So senior staff haven't had a chance to look at the details and work through which is the best fit. It could fund something that you've got on the table, or it might be an opportunity to tackle something that we haven't brought forward this evening too. I know Public Works for sure has a list of projects that need to be addressed, and Becky mentioned there the Davidson Street Bridge might come back. Part of our issue, of course, is to get the projects prepared and the work done by the engineers, and there's only so many of them too. And so once a stimulus package like that comes out, sometimes it's, we all want to have their services at the same time. But yeah, I think we'll have to bring those back to you as per the project and get your approval as we go along and see whether it applies to projects that we currently have or something that we can maybe bring forward to take opportunity for special funding.
Yeah, that's right, Fran. Thank you, Terry. Does that answer your question? Once again, if we can
Yeah.
spend if we can spend 30-cent dollars, those are dollars well spent, I think.
Yeah. I think that we've got our homework done with the Davison Street Bridge there. We went ahead and got all the engineering done there. We're ready to go with that. I'm pretty sure. We were put down last time we applied for it. So that was the first thing that came to my mind, is that maybe we'll get her this time for that Davison Street Bridge.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, Terry. Mayor Kasenberg, go ahead.
Just checking in with our understanding of the announcement that Councillor Seiler has referenced. There was an announcement made yesterday by Mr. Pettipies with regards to a spend in the riding of $6.987 million, of which 410,000 was and change was allocated to North Perth. These funds are coming from OSIF, and so it's not exactly new money. It's money that's been provided in previous years for municipal infrastructure purposes. And I believe it's formula funding. So I'm not sure that this represents new opportunity or whether this is just funds that we've gotten used to using coming in for infrastructure from the province.
Very good. Thank you. Lyndon, do you want to weigh in on this?
Just as a, excuse me, thank you, Chair. Just as an update, the Davidson Street Bridge is absolutely, roughly designed. We need to make some modifications to it and get things tender ready. The plan this year, as is listed, it was listed as a reduction only because it would be tendered and awarded this year with construction happening next year. Having heard the announcement and looking at it, there's two other structures of smaller value that need to be worked on as well, that are in the capital budget and remain. They might be more applicable, but whatever structure, whatever project, it could be the resurfacing program as well, that we can find that would suit the funding opportunity will apply. It's just right now from a budgeting perspective, you can't count on the dollars. I wish I could say I had a good track record over the last few years of making application with the team and being successful, but certainly Davidson would be on the table. I can talk to the engineers again right now about the potential of bringing it forward just for this purpose, if it's applicable. But we'll be reporting back every step of the way in terms of making application for specific projects for this funding.
Very good. Thank you, Lyndon. Do we have any other questions about the 2021 capital budget as presented of 19.7 million? Anything else? Just going back to a previous discussion, Leanne, did you want to ask a question about some Wi-Fi and rural broadband at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chair Dave. Yeah, I wasn't sure it was at this point, but sure, I'm happy
Let's
to.
do it now.
Sure, thank you for inviting me to talk about that a little bit. Again, it's very conflicting because it's not that we want to burden the taxpayer with additional cost. However, in order for us to be successful as a municipality in terms of individual businesses, most of which are in our rural areas, they're really struggling to conduct business. They're struggling to have their children learn and attend school now because it's online. They're struggling to attend university courses because they're doing it online. And it's all because at this point there's a constant drain on Wi-Fi and internet services in our rural areas. I attended a conference in the last couple of days on behalf of the municipality, and this is something that every council is trying to grapple with. And there are opportunities out there that have been presented to us, including SWIFT, and there are other opportunities, probably through provincial and probably federal funding. However, it has been made clear that it's going to require us to invest as well. It's not just going to be a grant that's provided by our other governments. We as a municipality are going to have to support the process and make some investment as well. And we talked tonight about making some sacrifices, about not approving different projects because of the fact that we do know that there are other needs in our community. And I can tell you from an agricultural perspective and from my rural neighbors, this is a need. This is an absolute need. And from an equity standpoint, we really need to look at what we can do to support the improvement of internet service in our municipality for sure. So I don't have any answers, of course, about, how to do that. And I know that's not something that any kind of magic wand in any budget this year is going to fix. But I think we need to begin some processes to think about what can be done in the next couple of years. As in the time that we are in council, we do need to think about what can we do instead of what we can't, but what can we do, even if it's in small ways. So I wanted to open up that discussion. And I believe it needs to be something that we're going to have to put on the forefront in order to support the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Mayor Todd, did you want to just weigh in with a SWIFT update, or let us know where SWIFT is? I know we've had some updates from them, and I know you're involved in that.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Dave. So certainly I serve as the Perth County Board member on SWIFT. It is exciting that the announcements with respect to procurement for the SWIFT project in Perth County is pending. We should see that in the next month. And, they've already made an announcement that was just ahead of ours, I think yesterday. So, we're getting close to announcements about SWIFT investments in Perth County. That said, it's in Perth County. And that means that the $5.9 million that SWIFT has committed for broadband service in Perth County is split between 4 lower tier municipalities. And so we are essentially in a lottery for the expenditure of those funds based on the best projects that SWIFT will select using its exceptional methodology for finding best value for the customers. That said, I know that, or I believe that there are some proposals that have been submitted for portions of North Perth. The question is, will they rank out against portions of Perth East or West Perth? The need in North Perth is quite different than the actual funds available. So as I said, the Perth County allocation from SWIFT is about $5.9 million. Often the numbers come up just a little bit because ISPs contribute at least a third to the project costs, and what SWIFT has seen so far is greater investment by the ISPs than the required third, which is generally good news. That said, the need for North Perth alone, we have done an internal back of the napkin kind of estimate with a little support from SWIFT. And we believe that the total spend that's needed in North Perth from this point, before the SWIFT announcements, to get virtually 100% coverage is $24 million. Using the SWIFT formula of a third, a third, and a third, that would mean that North Perth is going to be well short of that in any allocation in this phase of SWIFT funding, given that the total budget is $5.9 million. So we're not going to get anywhere close to 100% coverage in North Perth. In fact, we'll be lucky if we hit 30% coverage in North Perth. And what SWIFT has observed, just so that people understand, is that the projects that have generally been funded are the easiest ones to do. So the small hamlets and villages are the ones that get done. I think from a realistic perspective, the good news is for the boys from Britain. It is highly likely that a project in Britain will be on the docket because there's enough homes in that neighborhood to make it worth the ISP's while. Unfortunately, I think for Councillor Behrens, it means that she's out for a little while, and the same with Councillor Andreessen. That's generally what we've seen in the SWIFT projects in other counties to this point. So we have a gap. We're going to have a gap, and if you took that 5.9 and split it 4 ways, you're talking about 1.5 million against a $24 million deficit that's estimated for North Perth. That's not a huge bootstrap forward, and that's why it is a daunting task to address the financials around getting this job done. I have argued, and I'll do the little political thing for a moment. I have argued that we'll never get better interest rates on infrastructure money than now. And so the opportunity would be now, if we were bold and wished to borrow, to get a lot closer to the goal. But it would be a big, bold move. And it's a lot to stomach. It's a lot of risk. So that's sort of my report and my overview of the landscape. I will also say, as council may recall, that we had we extended some letters of support from the corporation for some of the projects to the ICON program, which is the Ontario government fund for broadband. And those projects too could be awarded, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if in fact SWIFT and ICON received the same project proposals. And that might be unfortunate because essentially, two pots of money are being thrown at the same problem. And that could confound things a little bit and slow things a little bit. So just thoughts about that process.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. And I can tell you that when you've got 2 kids learning online, doing both high school courses, and your internet kicks out, you hear screaming and squawking right away in a hurry that somebody hit the router quick and stuff like that as they try to get back onto their online school. So it is an issue. And I thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, for your time on SWIFT. And hopefully we can make some inroads on this project. But I agree, Leanne, we need to keep talking about it. We need to keep it on the forefront, and we need to start planning for it. Looks to me like, Mayor Kasenberg, is that all you had to say, or is there anything else you'd like to bring up now? You're good? Okay, Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Dave. I guess I need just for some clarification. This probably is a good time to bring this question up, which has been brought to me on this issue. The issue was brought to me that a ratepayer, the option is that you can get broadband and you pay so much a month for it. Is that right or wrong? It's in the country, in North Perth. You can get the broadband and you pay for a user fee.
Well, we pay a user fee, but the internet is crappy and slow. I think it's kind of it's what we're getting, Terry. It's not great quality, and it kicks out. It's kicked out on me. It kicked out the other night at the start of council. I was trying to get my hotspot going, and kids were still working on projects for school, and all of a sudden the internet's down. Thankfully, it was right at the start of council meeting, and I got my hotspot going, and I was able to stay on. But it's not a very reliable internet source that we have out in the
is this rural. Broadband? Is this broadband you're talking about? Because people, they say that they pay for broadband in our country, out in our country. Is that available to our ratepayers?
That I'm not totally sure of. Maybe Councillor Rothwell could weigh in on this. Or Todd.
Dave, yeah, let me take a go at this if you don't mind, Dave.
Sure, go ahead.
Terry, um, think of broadband as road widths, right? And the problem that we're facing now is that we're trying to fly 747 planes down the King Street in Atwood, if that's helpful. And so, the roads that we have in many places in North Perth that are equivalent to bandwidths are very small relative to the demand. And they're subject, depending on the technology, they're subject to spontaneous decreases, sort of declines in capability. It's like the road gets narrower at points in time, which means that the more cars and the more planes you shove on the road, the more problems you have, right? So there are claims from some vendors that they deliver broadband service in the country using wireless technologies, radio type technologies, all right? The problem with that claim is that the more people you shove onto the cell, onto the unit that's transmitting the radio, it's like you're shrinking the roads until nobody can use it. And so typically what happens is with these radio-based claims, they might say that they deliver what they call 50 megabyte service, 5010, which is download and upload times to the internet. But the problem is they deliver 5010 if just one customer is on the system. Now throw 10 customers and it deteriorates the quality, the speed of the signal, essentially shrinking the road so that nobody gets really good service. And that's the challenge that we face with some of the radio-based technologies is that they've come in and they've made claims that they're delivering broadband. They made claims that they're delivering 5010 service, but it's essentially 5010 service under the most optimum of conditions. And as soon as you add a second user or a third user, the system is not delivering 5010. It's delivering the speed of internet that we used to have in 1999. And that's a significant problem given the demands for high bandwidth for things like video. Video is like an airplane flying down King Street in Atwood, and it just can't be accommodated, right? So that's why I cut out, you cut out, Dave cuts out, Alan cuts out, Leanne cuts out, Julie cuts out. It's because we're just not getting the reliable signal, and the more users on the trunk, the narrower the bandwidth essentially gets. So that's why, I mean, generally Swift is what they call technology agnostic, but it demands guaranteed 5010 service for every resident. And unfortunately, the way to guarantee that, the way to assure that, is to put fiber to the home.
Okay, that explains it better for me.
That's the
Thank
best
you.
explanation I can give.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Terry, does that answer your question?
Okay, that answers my question, but I guess what the ratepayer is getting at, if he's paying $100 a month for broadband already, he doesn't want to put any more back onto his tax bill. So I don't know where
Yeah,
Yeah,
once again, I'm not sure there is a right answer to that, Terry.
that's just
Yeah, I
All right,
agree.
thank
Good
you.
point. Okay, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Dave, and thanks, Mayor Todd, for that explanation. I think it's very clear how that works. And there's a couple quick things I want to say. One to Councillor Seiler is that irrespective of some people's ability to pay in terms of if they have a true desire to have the best to meet the standard, as Mayor Todd talked about, 50-10, if money is no object, they might be able to go out and get something in and of themselves. But most people haven't got that amount of money to spend, and it's usually based on wherever you're geographically located. And it is very much a situation currently without having fiber in the ground. If it is wire-based or wireless-based technologies that we're dealing with, we're subject to all kinds of different things in terms of our proximity to the closest tower, issues with respect to weather, as well as time of year in terms of foliage and so on, like trees and such. So there is no guarantee with respect to wireless, and that's what Mayor Todd was getting to. So, I mean, Councillor Johnson and myself, our families deal with this regularly. I can tell you personally, we're doing things, through our internet, which even a few years ago were unheard of. I mean, this very meeting that we've got all kinds of video streaming and stuff is stunning. We wouldn't be there even a few years ago, but we're, even though Councillor Johnson talked about some issues and so on, we're still lucky compared to many people in Ontario. And, that's a poor consolation when you're going through, I can't do this. But I think that's the issue. But I just want to go on to Councillor Andreessen talked about the fact that she was at the Roma conference, as well as myself. Connecting Rural Ontario was the theme of the conference. And I can tell you from the Premier through to various ministers and so on, this is the number one issue that we're dealing with in terms of connectivity, in terms of internet capacity. So whether you're a business, whether you're a student, whether you're a senior, whatever it is, COVID has put this front and center, and rural Ontario are the ones that are in desperate need to be able to do these things. And I think it's important for us to look at other opportunities that are there. SWIFT is a great program and so on, but as Mayor Todd says, it's a long-term vision, and we're not going to get there overnight, even with the dollars that we're spending. There are some municipalities, and Mayor Todd will know Caledon, our previous or former Roma chair, Alan Thompson, talked specifically about the project that Caledon did. They actually put money on the levy to help them be able to put skin in the game from the municipalities. So that's basically what we're starting to talk about here. And I think we would want to have a very good roadmap in terms of what it is that we're going to do. And as we've talked around the council table before, is that this is very much a need. Some are advocating, as was talked at the conference, as being an essential service. And there's all kinds of provincial issues around that and federal in terms of what is an essential service. And there's a lot of costs associated with that. That's why there's a lot of people balking at that in terms of making it such. It is very much a necessity in terms of trying to make our way through in this time. And I'm certainly willing to have further conversation about it. I'm not sure that we're going to have the information that we need for implementation of budget at this time, but I've gone on long enough. But we will be able to provide, Councillor Andreessen and I will be providing council with updates or a summary of the Roma conference details. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Now, hopefully Councillor Behrens, with her poor internet, sometimes can hear me. Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Dave. I just want to say, and I think, Alan, you were actually there back, many years ago. I think it was at the Southwestern Conference in London, but I could be wrong, where we had a presentation of the original SWIFT, and they were talking about, the need to increase the bandwidth for more dedication throughout Ontario. But in answer to Councillor Seiler's comments, I know of farms around here that have put thousands of dollars into hardware to be able to try to get something. And it's not a matter of paying a monthly bill, Terry. For ourselves, we were in the process of trying to check something out. We cannot get internet per se through a phone line. There is no high speed there whatsoever, but we were looking at a different type. We can't site the towers, and some industry has changed their opinion on the ability to use their towers to relay signals. So And Alan Rothwell is correct in saying that, you know, depending on whether it's a snowstorm or the trees have leafed out, it is that finicky that you might not be able to get any connection whatsoever. It has magnified it because of the online learning and the online meetings and everything else, but the issue was always there. Now, I am aware of at least one new tower going up, but I think it's probably more like trying to get everybody on the same page when you've got some people that do have the capability to put relays on top of towers and things like that, and they won't do it. So, you know, it's a tough situation that I struggle with every single day. And I'm just happy tonight that the weather's reasonably calm and I haven't lost connection yet. But this is going to be an issue for us for a long time. But I agree with what Alan said. Truly, we are in many ways blessed by the connectivity that we do have. So I think it's not a matter of dollars, Terry. It's a matter of there is no service that you can get to or access. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. I think that's enough internet talk tonight, and we know it's an issue. We know there's a problem. We know it needs money, and we need to keep talking about it. We need to keep working as getting as much SWIFT money as we can, and seeing what other options are out there, whether we do bite the bullet and go all the way and borrow some money and get it done. That will be some conversations for likely not even just this council, but likely the next council as well. It'll be an ongoing issue. Is there any other comments with regard to the 2021 capital budget as presented of totaling $19,756,579? Does anyone else have comments? I'm not seeing any, Pat. Then I would ask Councillor Anstead, would you be willing to move the motion? And I'll read it again. It's a motion that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth supports that the amended 2021 capital budget totaling $19,756,579 be virtually presented to the public by the 2021 budget chair and vice chair on or before February 10th, 2021 to seek public input. Councillor Anstead, would you move that?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, would you second that?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the 2021 capital budget? And once again, we will be presenting this in a virtually be presented to the public by Alan and myself to seek public input. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, then all those opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Becky. We are up to 5.1, Council comments, direction, and discussion regarding the online public consultation. We are aiming for on or before February the 10th. So as council knows, in the past, we've done the public open house. We always had, you know, last year we had stations kind of set up and everybody could view what was going on their projects and stuff. With that not being an option this year, we were looking at using the Your Say North Perth, doing a video of using Alan and myself to kind of give the highlights, the totals, going through some of the capital projects and stuff like that, and try and get the word out to the public and get some feedback back. Alan, is there anything you want to add as to our discussion that we've had about the public consultation period that we were going to go into?
Thanks, Dave. One thing you forgot to mention was your suggestion that we may want to get on our local news 100.1 the ranch, and perhaps CKNX if necessary as well, to be able to talk to the public as well to get the information and either have a bit of a talk with some of our radio personalities about the budget that way, and sort of guide and direct them through to the Your Say North Perth venue for more information. I think we're trying to reach out as much as possible. So did you have anything else you wanted to say about that?
No,
I mean,
that's
one of the
great, Alan. If we can use our local media, once again, the banner, the ranch, CKNX, if we can use them to get the word out and help us promote it. Yes, we can't have the public consultation in person, but I think we can get more public involved virtually and maybe get more public feedback than other years. I see Councillor Richardson.
Thank you again, Chair Dave. I've always said in the past, and probably much to the chagrin of our Director of Finance, Fran, I like to equate things down to daily rates or even examples of rates that even though we have the 3%, it's going to reflect at a 1.7 that a majority of people who aren't on council and understand how the math works, it's not really a true figure. Like when they see how much would an average house, like we always used to get the sheet that would give an average farm or a farm in Atwood or in Alma Township and Wallace Township, a standard house, a residential, a business commercial unit and stuff like that. I think it would be interesting to say, give examples that if you happen to be doing something on the radio to do that, an average home within the urban area of North Perth that is worth $500,000 will see an increase of $21.27 approximately. That makes all the difference in the world when you say 3%. 3%, $500,000. Holy crap, what are you doing to me? People don't understand how the property tax as relation to their assessments work. If you have a farm that is worth $1.5 million, and all of a sudden, if people don't understand what that can go up to, give certain examples. We used to have that sheet, even if it was like 3 or 4 examples, a standard rural, and give a benchmark figure, an average price in town. A house that is worth $350,000, or even if you can put the numbers at such a state that, okay, every residential value up to $100,000 will be X amount of percent. So if you have 1% for every $100,000. So if you happen to have $600,000 home, and I don't know if you can equate it to numbers like that because I know it's very fluid, and don't mean to ramble, but I'm just saying giving dollars and cents figures like that will make a big difference because that's what people can relate to. You can talk about the capital projects that we're going to do. We're going to do this, and this, but we're being very conservative. And by doing this, and this, and this, and this, it is going to put your rates up approximately $20 a year, which will be X amount a month or whatever. People will be able to relate to me. 6 cents a day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fran.
There we go. Fran's got it figured to the date.
You're a lovely girl. You're a lovely girlfriend. Thank you so much for having my back. So, but I think that would make a big difference because that takes away the air of, oh my goodness, that's a big, huge increase when you can equate it down to that, even if it's an example on the total. Okay, what we plan to do this year is going to cost you $25 a year, whatever. People can see that, okay, that's reasonable. But keep in mind that's going to include your wheelie bins and this, that, and the other. Yep. And that's where people can see. That's only my 2 cents that I think we need to explain the math about where the bottom line of the property tax dollars are going to come from and how they're calculated. And I think that makes a big difference because I've done it several times. And when you do equate it down to a daily expenditure, oh, well, that's not too bad. And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, carry on. That's what they say. So thank you.
Point well taken, Councillor Richardson. Appreciate it. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chair Dave. Just wondered about, video is great, and I think that's awesome. And I'm just trying to understand how it'll become interactive for the public to actually ask questions or talk. Um, you talked about your say North Perth, and typically my understanding of that is more from a survey perspective. So just wondering how it becomes an interactive process. Thanks.
I'm not sure it was going to be 100% interactive, Leanne. We were going to do a video that would highlight things like that and then try and get some feedback that we can answer those questions. Maybe Fran, this would be a good spot for you to weigh in as well on your thoughts.
Yeah, I think you summarized that very well. I think it'll be a interactive on a delayed process. So Dave and Alan will do their presentation similar, using the slides similar to what we would have had in a public meeting. And then as they ask questions, we'll take the questions and we'll answer them publicly as well, so that that's interactive that way, so that the general public can see, oh, this person asked that question and this is the answer that they got. If I might go back to Matt's comments too, one of the things he brought up was he's talking about the other fee changes. And so is that something that you think we should bring forward as part of the budget presentation? Is here's the change in your tax, and you're going to have a change in your wheelie bin, and so do a cumulative based on average as well? Or do you think that would be confusing? I'd appreciate, and I don't know, Dave and Alan, if you want to bring this up now, but just, is that something that you think would be valuable for the public to see it all brought together under an average household or an average farm?
I think so, Fran. In my opinion, I think if we can equate everything in, because farms aren't going to be paying for water and wastewater and stuff like that, but they will be paying for most farms that have a house will have a wheelie bin. So I think if we can break it down on the total part like that, I like it. And I think Councillor Richardson wants to weigh in on this.
Yes, please. Nothing grinds the gears of taxpayers or anyone. It's no different than ordering from a business or anything like that to find out, oh, well, then it's going to cost you this much for this, and then it's going to cost you this much for this. It's not your advertised price. I think, especially in this year, we can certainly over deliver and under promise. That if we say out the door cost, done and dusted. And I think we need to calculate those with some very pointed examples: residential home, farm, business. More questions, give us a call, do a YouTube video, and you can put the questions. You could even have Alan interviewing you, Dave, to saying, oh, well, what if I happen to have a home? How much is everything going to go up? Well, with your wheelie bins and your levy rate and stuff like that, you're going to go up $37 this year, which will be X amount to do, which for the most part, I think you can equate it down, but it needs to be total cost for the most part, out the door averages, and people will accept that because nothing ticks people off more than to get plus, 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 plus. So thank you.
Councillor Rothwell, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, for those thoughts.
Thanks. I just put this in the chat earlier, but to your point, Councillor Richardson, is that when Becky, Fran, Jessica, and Dave and I had our last budget meeting in preparation for this meeting, Becky did have those examples exactly as you've talked about, Councillor Richardson. So I think that's going to be helpful. I'm just wondering, in terms of the difference between sort of an all-in situation versus having it itemized in terms of the like, let's talk about the wheelie bins, and let's in particular, because there's you can, for the garbage, for example, depending if you've got a small or a large, you have a different fee. So not everyone's got the same size. So I think if to your point, Councillor Richardson, if we want to say specifically, if you want to know this is what's coming at me, and I only have a small bin as opposed to a large, I would rather have the exact information. So I think we can provide that. I hope, Fran, that we could do that. And I think would be beneficial as we're trying to sort of present this to the public is that, here's on the average what you'd be paying, but then on the user pay system, I think people would want to know that for sure. And especially when we get into water and wastewater, you could say, here's what the average would be. And I think we could do that to be able to get that. And people are generally going to have an idea as to whether they're, average consumers of water and wastewater, or whether they're below or above, as long as we can provide some assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vice Chair Rothwell. And I think Jessica has some ideas on this already that she's been working on, and she was working on one last week, or looking at a presentation that we had brought to us, council, and she was led to believe it wasn't that hard to do a presentation like that. So Jessica's already thought about some ways that we can do this. And once again, it will be the first time we're doing it virtually, and it might be something we end up doing other years. So we appreciate your comments. Any other direction or discussion regarding the online public consultation? Councillor Seiler.
Just one thing to add there, Dave. It's and where you live in North Perth, it may make a difference. Last year, there was a house that's priced at 500,000 in Listowel, and one in Gownstown, and the one in Listowel's taxes went up, and the one in Gownstown went down. So it varies where you live in North Perth, too. And Fran can explain that to you, because I asked her last year why that was. So that's something that you need to remember too. Like even in Moncton or Atwood, it all varies on your impact, I think.
That's a good point, and I was afraid that Terry, you were asking for a spot in this video, and we'd have to tell you to wait till next year when your video comes out. So, okay, any more comments, council? We have some good ideas out there. Fran and Becky have been listening as well, and they will be the producer and guider of the upcoming video. So we will get the public consultation out there, let everybody know what's coming. Appreciate the comments tonight, council. It's been a great discussion. We've had a good chew at this budget, I think. In my opinion, we've looked at it very in depth and had a good comments about it all the way. Anything else from council under council direction? Any comments or direction? I'm not seeing any, Pat. Moving on to item 6. Is there any announcements that anyone has that they would like to do at this point? Councillor Andreessen.
Hi, thank you, Chair Dave. I just want to thank our treasurer, Ms. Hale, and her staff, along with Becky, for their incredible amount of work that they've done on this whole budget process. In fact, I was actually reflecting on it today when I was reviewing the ebook again, and I just found everything extremely organized and very easy for me as a counselor to take a look at all the reports and do a comparative analysis on all the charts and spreadsheets, and everything was really easy to access. And I just really want to thank their whole team for an excellent job. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll actually take some of the credit for that, Leanne, because I told them they either had to keep it simple or I wasn't going to be able to do this job. So looks like Fran wants to weigh in.
I really need to extend that. It's not just finance, it's all the departments. A lot of energy goes into thinking through what's best for the community by all staff, our CAO, of course, and like each department head, I know they sweat through the bullets to try to make sure that the numbers make sense and that they're right and that we're moving the municipality ahead. So, and kudos to the young Becky and Jessica for being able to manage the flip books, and we got some of those ideas from last year's budget committee. So Yeah, no, it definitely is a group effort, and I'm very pleased at how it does come together, and I appreciate your comments.
Thanks, Fran, and yes, I want to pass that on as well. That it's been great to work with Fran and Becky and Councillor Rothwell as well as vice chair. It's been interesting. A great learning experience for myself. I'm not sure when I was budget chair prior, but it would have likely been 15 or 18 years ago. So a lot has changed in my times of sitting in this chair. Looks like Mayor Kasenberg wants to weigh in.
Well, I can just echo everything that's been. I'm not sure if you heard me. I want to echo everything that's been said about appreciation for the staff, the team. Amazing work has been done as always. We have an exceptional staff. We're hoping that we can continue to have an exceptional staff through strategic investments that will allow us to move forward with our business plan. And I'm excited about what lies ahead. Special thanks and tribute to our chair and our co-chair this year for all their excellent work. And I look forward to seeing their video and their radio interviews, hearing that. It all sounds very exciting, and we look forward to what lies ahead. Thanks so much, folks.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. You're right, and you wait till you see the video on the Britain Boys budgeting. We'll get a lot of YouTube hits on that one. I'm fairly certain. Okay, we have no closed session for tonight that I know of, Pat, correct? That is correct. So we will move on to the confirmatory bylaw. So I have a motion in front of me, council, that bylaw number 109-2021, being a bylaw to confirm generously previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Could I get Councillor Duncan to move that?
I certainly will move it.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, would you second that?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone with any discussion? Okay, all those opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that is passed. I don't believe we have any other business to do tonight. I have another motion in front of me that the council meeting adjourns to meet again for general council business on Monday, February the 1st, 2021. Would Councillor Richardson move that?
I would be delighted to move that. So sorry.
Thank you.
I hit mute twice.
Councillor Rothwell, would you second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. All those opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, that motion is approved. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much, council and staff, for all your input into the meeting. Have a great night.